You've been told your whole life that nice guys finish last, that being kind makes you soft, that if you give too much, people will walk all over you. And maybe you've felt it firsthand. You hold the door, you listen to a friend vent for an hour, you lend a few bucks you never see again. And somewhere inside, a little voice whispers, "Why am I the one who always loses?" So you try to toughen up. You try to care less. You build a tiny wall around your heart and call it boundaries. But here's the quiet disaster nobody warned you about. Every time you suppress kindness, you are actually dumbing down your own brain. Not metaphorically. Literally. Your memory gets fuzzier. Your decisions get slower. Your stress stays higher for longer. And the worst part? You have no idea it's happening. What if I told you there's a hidden neurological rule, let's call it the generosity gain, that determines how sharp, calm, and quick your brain becomes as you age? And what if I told you that every single self-help habit you've tried, discipline, morning routines, productivity hacks, will keep failing until you understand this one specific truth about yourself? I'm not talking about being a doormat. I'm talking about a hard scientific fact that most people never learn because it sounds too soft to be real. But the scans don't lie. The data is brutal. And by the end of this video, you're going to see kindness not as a weakness, but as the single most underrated brain hack you already own. Stick with me, because the answer to why kind people have better brains is about to rewire everything you thought you knew. Let's start with a scene you know by heart. You're walking down the street and someone drops their grocery bag. Apples roll everywhere. You stop. You help. For 10 seconds, you're on your knees chasing fruit. And then you walk away feeling weirdly good. That feeling isn't just politeness. That's your brain flooding with a chemical called oxytocin. Researchers call it the bonding molecule. But here's what they don't tell you in the textbooks. Oxytocin also massively reduces activity in your amygdala. That's the tiny alarm system in your brain that screams, "danger," all day. When you perform a small act of kindness, your amygdala literally quiets down. Your blood pressure drops. Your cortisol, the stress hormone that shrinks your memory center, falls by nearly 20% in just a few minutes. So every time you choose kindness, you are giving your brain a chemical vacation. And people who do this repeatedly? Their amygdalas are noticeably smaller and less reactive on MRI scans. They don't just feel calmer. Their brains are physically different. Now contrast that with what happens when you hold back. When you see someone struggling and you pretend not to notice. When a coworker asks for help and you say, "I'm too busy," even though you're just scrolling. Your brain doesn't feel safe. It feels conflict. A region called the anterior cingulate cortex, your brain's error detection center, lights up like a fire alarm. It sends a signal. You acted against your own values. That signal triggers a low-grade stress response that can last for hours. You might not even notice it. You just feel vaguely irritable, tired, or annoyed. You snap at your partner for no reason. You stare blankly at your screen. You open the fridge, close it, open it again. That's not laziness. That's your brain paying the hidden tax of unkindness. Over months, that chronic low-level stress eats away at your hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped region responsible for learning and memory. One study from UCLA followed 400 people for a decade and found that those who rated themselves as least compassionate had hippocampal volumes nearly 12% smaller than their kind peers. 12%. That's the difference between remembering where you put your keys and spending 10 minutes searching every morning. But let's talk about dopamine, because this is where it gets really unfair. You've been taught that dopamine comes from winning, from getting the promotion, the likes, the validation. And yes, that's true, for about 2 seconds. Then the dopamine crashes, and you need a bigger win to feel the same hit. That's why social media feels so hollow. But kindness triggers a completely different dopamine pathway. It's not the reward prediction error pathway that craves novelty. It's the affiliative reward pathway connected to your brain's default mode network. When you give without expecting anything back, a genuine compliment, a few minutes of patience, a small favor, your brain releases dopamine that lasts longer and doesn't require escalation. Neuroscientists call it the warm glow. And here's the kicker. Watching someone else be kind triggers the same response. Your brain has mirror neurons that fire identically, whether you do the kind act or just observe it. That means kindness is literally contagious on a neurological level. One generous person in a room can shift the brain chemistry of everyone around them within minutes. So when you're kind, you're not just upgrading your own brain, you're quietly hacking the collective intelligence of your entire environment. Now consider decision fatigue. You know that feeling by 3 p.m. when you can't decide what to eat, what to wear, or whether to answer a text? That's your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, running out of glucose. Every decision, no matter how small, burns energy. But here's a secret they don't teach in business school. Acts of kindness actually restore prefrontal glucose faster than rest. A study from the University of Zurich gave participants a difficult cognitive task until they were mentally exhausted. Half were then asked to do a small favor for a stranger. The other half just sat quietly. The kindness group performed 23% better on a subsequent decision-making test. Why? Because kindness activates the vagus nerve, a long cable from your brainstem to your heart. When the vagus nerve is stimulated, it releases acetylcholine, which increases blood flow and glucose delivery to the prefrontal cortex. In plain English, being kind literally refuels your willpower. So that moment when you're exhausted and someone asks for help, your instinct is to say no to save energy. But the science says the opposite. Saying yes gives you more energy. Your brain is wired backwards from everything you assumed. Let's get even deeper. Your brain has a prediction engine. Every second, it's guessing what will happen next based on past experience. If you grow up believing people are selfish, your brain will constantly predict betrayal. That prediction creates a self-fulfilling loop. You act guarded, people respond coldly, and your brain says, "See, I was right." That loop keeps your threat detection system permanently on, which exhausts your cognitive reserves. But kind people have trained their brains to predict cooperation. They expect the best, so they act open, and others mirror that openness. Over time, that prediction habit becomes structural. Their prefrontal cortex develops stronger connections to their reward centers and weaker connections to their fear centers. On a brain scan, you can literally see the difference in white matter tracts. Kind people's brains are more efficient. They use less energy to process social situations. They make faster, better judgments because they aren't constantly running threat simulations. You, right now, can start rewiring those same tracts, not by meditating for an hour a day, by doing one tiny, unpredictable, kind act every single morning. Hold the elevator for someone who looks rushed. Send a text thanking an old friend for something they did years ago. Leave a note for a coworker. These aren't grand gestures, they're reps. And each rep strengthens the neural pathway that makes your brain faster, calmer, and smarter. Remember the mystery I promised you at the beginning? The generosity gain? Here it is. Your brain has a hidden thermostat called the default mode network. It's the part that activates when you're not focused on anything specific, just daydreaming or ruminating. In most people, the default mode network is a gossipy, anxious neighbor. It replays old arguments. It imagines future humiliations. It keeps you awake at night. But here's what the newest neuroscience discovered. Every single act of genuine kindness temporarily silences your default mode network. For those few seconds, your brain stops obsessing over yourself. No, what if they don't like me? No, did I say the wrong thing? Just quiet. And when you do kindness regularly, your brain learns to quiet that network faster and keep it quiet longer. That's the ultimate hack. The less your brain talks about you, the more resources it has for everything else. Memory, creativity, problem solving. joy. Kind people aren't just nicer. They're less trapped in their own heads. They have more mental bandwidth for what actually matters. So here is your one master strategy. You don't need to become a saint. You don't need to donate your salary or volunteer every weekend. You need to find 3 microscopic opportunities for kindness every single day. Not big ones. Small enough that they cost you almost nothing. A genuine smile at the cashier. A patient answer to a confused person online. Leaving a slightly better review than a place deserves. Each one is a rep. Each one quiets your default mode network for a few seconds. Each one strengthens your prefrontal cortex, lowers your amygdala, and refuels your dopamine. Do this for 2 weeks, and your brain will physically shift. You'll notice you remember names more easily. You'll snap less at small annoyances. You'll make decisions faster. And the most beautiful irony? The people around you will start being kinder back, not because you manipulated them, but because your brain's mirror neurons will literally rewire theirs. You won't finish last. You'll finish free. The only question left isn't whether kindness works. It's whether you're brave enough to stop pretending that being hard is the same as being smart. You already know the answer. Your brain has been waiting for you to listen.